Hey, everybody. So here I'm with Jeff Shaffer, to go over creating a Photoshop video storyboard. How you doing, Jeff?
Doing great. How's everybody?
Good. I think people are starting to come into the rooms, into the groups. We already have Andrew Nichols here from the UK. How you doing, Andrew? And so, yeah, just a reminder, let us know where everyone is watching from as we build up attendance. And also during the event, remember to please give StreamYard permission to show your name and profile pic, so I'll be able to credit you when you comment or ask questions. You should see that underneath the live video. There's a link, streamyard.com/Facebook. Thank you. We have Dave from Chicago. Thanks for being here. So let us know, everybody, where you are watching from. Hey, we got Stefan Kaplan. It says, Andrew, the man who brings all of us creatives together. Hi, Jeff. So looking forward to this. It's all about great storytelling. Yeah. And Stefan does some great work, too. He's a live streamer, social media guy, too, and photographer, focused on the photography show himself. So we got Kane from Maritas. Nice. So you say the weather is a bit stormy there now, huh? Where you are? And
we actually had some hail a few minutes ago, and then it passing through. So we don't usually get that, but
King says it's
too large hail. So.
Kathy's here. Kathy used to be an admin for the Photoshop and Lightroom group. Great to see you here.
Oh, okay.
Watching from Southern California. Great. Thanks, Kathy. Yeah, it's funny how 73 degrees here, hail where you are on the East Coast. Yeah.
Well, when it rains in LA, it really rains. So
yeah, we don't get much of it,
often, but
we don't get enough. We don't get enough.
Well, you can have some of ours.
Stefan wants to be viewing from Maritas. Yeah. Trade from New Jersey. And Kane Oliver says it's raining here too. Yeah. Pouring here. And it's 100 degrees. Wow. In that part of California. Rosalind's watching from Hobart, Tasmania. See, quite the international group. I love it. Great.
Very cool.
Okay. So it's been a bit now. So Jeff, do you want to introduce yourself and talk a little bit about today's presentation?
Sure. I'm Jeff Shaffer. I was a commercial photographer doing advertising work mostly for 30 years. And since then, I've been doing a lot of video projects and Photoshop and video training online. And this particular project that I'm going to go over here is a storyboard for a video that I created. And it's all composite imagery. It's got that kind of apocalyptic kind of futuristic,
cool,
sort of in the vein of maybe Book of Eli or something like that. So I'm going to just show the process going through some of these, and we'll look at some of the layered files and how that came together from the sketch point on to the finished piece. I also made a presentation book as well, because I did this as part of a thesis project for the School of Visual Arts, where I also got a master's degree after many years, and I ended up teaching there for 3 years as well. So I've been working with Photoshop since version 2.5, and I just looked it up and we're on 22.4 now.
Right. So I think that's the exact same one I started with, 2.5.
Yeah, I was the first one with layers. So
yeah,
before that, I was like, I can't do this.
I remember I think all the tools or everything was like in black and white.
Yeah,
And
pretty much.
that was a little strange. And then it was on, at School of Visual Arts, there's like this little square old Macintosh, like a beige colored Macintosh. And
Yeah, like an SE or one of those. Yeah.
I was like, in my mind, I was thinking, I sure hope this evolves, because I felt like I was like doing Photoshop out of a shoebox or something.
Yeah. Well, I've seen videos where they actually challenged Photoshop experts to go back and work with like version 2 or version 1, and they're like, I can't work with this. I don't know. How do you do anything with this?
Crazy.
Great. So anyway, I want to show you some of the process here. This is a initial sketch when I was developing the concepts. So I would do like a little sketch like this and a bit of descriptive text here. And there's a few here like this. This one is really the only one that actually ended up looking something like my sketch. So this is the composite from that previous image there. So what I do, my process usually is I photograph the background plates first. So whatever that might be. So I live near Philadelphia, and Philadelphia is an old city, so there's a lot of sections of it where there's basically ruins and empty lots and things of that nature. So and there's a lot of renovation going on. So this is actually a composite of two sections. The background here, I could even do this. Let me just, I have a little cursor thingy. This will help move things around. So the background portion here is just vacant lot here. And this is another totally different section where they had poured a foundation. And then some of the other details actually came off graffiti around the city. That Philly has a lot of murals and things like that. So I had that. So then all my models are photographed in the studio. And I basically try to make the lighting match, the scene whenever possible. So I photograph them throughout. The inspiration for their costumes came from these images that I had researched. And what I discovered when I was, because I hired a wardrobe stylist to get the wardrobe together, and I used a singer and a model that came from the School of Visual Arts as models. And the stylist that I hired, he told me about he collects a lot of this kind of stuff that looks like the apocalypse is around the corner kind of clothing, right? And it turns out there's actually a designer in Bulgaria for Demobaza that makes a lot of this stuff. So he had some pieces of that, plus it was also sourced stuff from Army Navy stores and things like that. So this is a poster that I made to sort of promote the thing. It's also a composite as well. Again, they're shot in the studio, and I composite in the sky. This is the opening shot from the piece here, and so the guy that was who had the goggles on there, he emerges from this tunnel here, and kind of the idea is like behind the whole thing is that like many of these apocalyptic types of movies, that society's collapsed and remnants of things are left, like the oil companies are gone, so this element came from just, I was driving down the road past an antique place, and they all had old gas station signage. So I had taken a picture of that, and I thought that's a perfect element to use for the cover of the tunnel that they're in. And then the rest of it is elements from other places. This ruin here on the right is in Rhyolite, Nevada, which is on the border between New York and between California and Nevada. It's an old gold rush town. So that was the bank right there. That's what's left of the bank. This over here and some of this is from Alcatraz in San Francisco.
Cool.
This rubble in the front is from Philadelphia. The staircase and this door are from the Eastern State Penitentiary in Philadelphia, it's an old prison that Al Capone was once housed in.
Oh, you really like to mix it up. Right?
What's that?
You really like to mix it up, right? Like,
yeah, well, whatever elements work, right?
Right.
Yeah, the Eastern State Penitentiary was a good resource. It was also used as a location for the movie 12 Monkeys with Terry Gilliam. So those are all these elements here. So that's the opening scene. And then this woman emerges from the doorway there. That's the doorway to one of the prison cells in the Eastern State Penitentiary. They actually had people in solitary confinement in these little tiny places. So that element is there, and then there's a lot of textures added. Again, she shot in the studio and composited in to match the lighting, which I'll show you a little bit about how I did that. Here he's coming out of the tunnel. The tunnel itself, the main element here, the metal part, is actually from this camera.
Oh, that's great.
It's the front ring of this camera, which appears in another.
That's pretty creative. I like that.
Just
use everything in anything,
elements.
right?
What's that?
Use everything in anything, right? That's great.
Yeah. Well, I had, I was like, okay, well, I need something like this. Okay, what do I have? Trying to do something. I've used kitchen utensils and things like that too. But
great.
So part of the concept behind this too is that these people are finding each other, and they find that they are members of a group that has this spiral tattoo, and the spiral is a repeating thematic element throughout this. And the spiral has a lot of significance also mathematically, as well as in nature. So this is part of it. She discovers that he has this tattoo on his hand, so she figures, oh, he's one of us. He's okay, So look, let me go forward here. So then they come out of the tunnel, and then they look down. They're like, something's appeared here that we're looking at. And as he came out of the tunnel, he revealed this. He sees something here. There's this nautilus shell. So they start digging for it, digging it up to see what it is. And they see this, and it's basically sort of a burial site, as it turns out, for people that are part of this society. And so there's this nautilus shell. There's photographs of these people, and this right in here is the Sanskrit formula for the Fibonacci sequence, which is a mathematical sequence that describes a spiral mathematically. They were actually in my research, I found that in India, they were probably several centuries ahead of Fibonacci, who was an Italian mathematician, basically conceiving of the same idea. So I used the Sanskrit formula for that. So then this gives them a hint of, they get some clues from this burial site that they find, and decide to head off on this journey, right? So I reused this element and got a sky from Death Valley. So as they travel, they find this light. They see this light source off in the distance, which is a source of energy. And because society has collapsed, they still do have devices, but they need to periodically recharge them wherever they can find a place to recharge them. So this is they see the spiral leading to this and head off into that. When they actually reach this place, they can recharge some of these devices and everything that they have there. And you notice cool. There's a lot of, it may be hard to see on the screen there, but there's a lot of plant life around. And another thing I discovered in researching this was that plants can actually be modified to, instead of producing sugar when they perform photosynthesis, they can actually produce electrical currents. So plants could actually be a source of electrical energy, possibly in the future. So there's this power source that they come upon. And again, there's that same mounting plate from the camera. And then the middle part is the lens itself right in there. So that section in there. And then I just put some effects on this to create this sort of plasma looking thing. But then, this is all lit in the studio with the gels to simulate the lighting here. And this element's back here, I'll show you in upcoming here. But I got this texture of the wall actually by just something that came up on the news. It was wintertime. And there had been a fire in West Philadelphia in this one house or building. And on the news, they showed that when they put the fire out, all the water froze on the building. So I had to go out there and take pictures of that building. And that wall texture came from the frozen building, which you'll see in upcoming ones here. So this is one of the last elements here in this. As they go on their journey, they come across this big monolith, and of course you see it's covered with the plant life, and the plant life is what's generating the power. And then they see this portal that's in there that they head to there. So this is a composite of obviously the people. This is a big crater that's in Death Valley. It's called Ubahibi Crater. And it's about 700 feet deep. And then the monolith itself is one of my G-Tech hard drives.
Oh, yeah, funny.
That I textured up and did stuff to. So that was just laying around. And then this is the ending shot as they enter this portal here. And where does it lead, right? So you can see this portal. The elements here came from renovations that are going on at the Eastern State Penitentiary. The rafters are being repaired. So these are the rafters. And I just flipped it and duplicated. So you'll see in this composite how I approached that. But again, they're all, every time the people are in the shot, they were all shot in the studio. And I just created interactive lighting whenever possible to put them into the scene. And so one of the other things I try to note, if I shot a real background or a real scene, I would maybe take note of what focal length lens I used. And in some cases, if I really knew I was going to use this as a background element, I might even, measure the camera height and things like that, so I could more or less shoot the talent in the same conditions. So that makes it a lot easier to match things up.
Now you have one question which I think you're going to segue into anyways.
Okay.
Just thought I'd let you know. So someone asks, what is a Photoshop video storyboard?
Well, here we are. We're putting together this. If you were going to try and pitch a film or present it even like for an advertisement to a client, you want to show step-by-step key scenes with a description, like what's going to happen in this scene, right? So this is basically what the purpose of this is. I did make a short little film presentation. The actor that I used for the male actor here, he's also a singer and an actor, and he has this really deep baritone, kind of Barry White voice, and he did the voiceover for me on the film presentation. Right. So it would just be, they're basically, here's what we're planning to do,
right? And
step by step, obviously all of it can change, and it often does. Well, it's something like this. If you can do more, elements now, CGI or something like that, it's obviously less expensive. To build a set like this is quite costly. So that's the way a lot of this stuff is done now. Right. So I'm kind of presenting it in that form. Okay, so let me move on to the actual composites here. We can look at that. Here's everybody see that? Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. It's Photoshop, right?
All right. So right in regular old Photoshop 2021. And I tried with something like this. I've got 29 layers here in 8 groups. And the file is on disk. It's about almost 4 gigabytes. So, keeping organized is kind of important with something like this. You don't want to get lost, especially if you have to go back in and make some changes, things like that. So I like to color code my layers and put them into groups whenever possible, sort of logically oriented groups. At the top here, I've got some adjustment layers that are affecting the color overall. So it's like I'm cooling it down around the perimeter of that, right? But masking out the center, right? So that's a layer mask on that to mask out the center portion. Then I'm also modifying that a little bit more with the curves. So there's a hue adjustment layer and a curves layer. Then in here, I have grouped some other adjustments. This is adjusting the center portion, and this is kind of darkening down everything around the perimeter here quite a bit, just to kind of create the mood more, right? And these are there's some beams of glowing elements here, around here, and there's our subjects, our 2 subjects. So they're just by themselves there. And within that, there's actually another series of layers here to modify the center portion. Because originally what I did with the center is I had this element here. So the center was originally, I'll turn off these here for a minute. Turn that off. This was my original plan for the center. And I just thought, it's not really getting the message across that I wanted. But what it is actually a section of rock from Golden Canyon in Death Valley, which is here. So, oh, wait, no, this is the gate from one of the entryways in the Eastern State Penitentiary. And this is Golden Canyon here. And I used 2 sections of it. I angled it in another way like that. And I had to add some black at the bottom to fill it out. And here's the tunnel portion, which is actually these elements here. There's the rafters, the original shot of the rafters in Eastern State Penitentiary. And then what I did was I took this, isolated this, cut out this section, then flipped it so that it's mirrored, essentially, one on top of the other. So that's how I made that element there. And that's how that one came together. So
Great. Cool.
So let me close that one out for now. Save all the changes I made. And let me show you another one. Just thinking about it here. Okay. So this is the one with the couple there getting recharged, essentially, right? Pull that one up. They end up being pretty big files with all these layers and stuff. So even though the end presentation is just 1920 by 1080 standard HD presentation, but I also had, a printed book that I made. So I wanted them at a high resolution for that purpose. Come on, there we are. Okay.
Nice. Yeah.
So lots going on in there too. This, is masking things out and just getting the kind of the shadow detail revealed there. I sometimes use, now, if I were to do this today, I might, instead of making a burn dodge layer, I might instead do some of that in using Camera Raw as a filter on the in there to do burning and dodging and things of that nature, just because it's easier. But here, I create a soft light gray layer, and then you can burn and dodge on that.
Right.
And with the soft light blend mode, of course, then you have that. You can mask that and all that sort of thing. So, but I would probably do it differently now if I was especially working on a smart object, because then anything you use on a smart object, if you use Camera Raw as a filter, you have it's a smart filter too, which you can mask and turn off and all that. So I did try an element here where, there was sort of like flames of energy coming out, but I thought that was a bit much. So I kept the element in there, but I decided to leave that out. I had to, to get some of the interactive lighting here too. There are layers of beams that are basically just created right within Photoshop. So I would just make like a path or a shape and fill the shape with a color and maybe throw a gradient on it or something like that, and then do some masking on it, as you can see here. So all those elements are created that way. Here's my guy. He's got a few things there going on with him. One of the things that is a recurring element, and it's more apparent in the larger images, but the characters have, I put like a circuit board, printed circuit texture on their skin, as if they're kind of more like a cyborg kind of person, right? Mm-hmm. I just used a printed circuit to put that texture on, and then I would maybe, use liquefy or something of that nature to kind of shape it to their face. Sometimes you can use a displacement map to do that. Although it's a little kind of more of an older method, and sometimes it doesn't work so hot. So it might end up doing a little more hand work on that kind of a thing. But he's got all these different pieces going on with him. This actually is a little LED light that I use in my closet now to light that up. But it looked pretty good as a sort of a energy.
Yeah, works well
thing, on the wrist there. So, and then this is the elements for the woman here. She had a lot of her own wardrobe too. I mean, when she walks in the door, she kind of looks like maybe a queen from Egypt or something. She's very elaborate. She's a jewelry designer, and she always has this very elaborate outfits when she comes in. So we could use some of the things that she would do normally anyway as part of the wardrobe. So there's all this stuff going on here. The background here is we've got some ivy that was covering buildings in Philly. That's over in here. And there's sections of that here that I've used and repeated multiple times in different places to get the texture that I wanted and masking them out where desired. So this texture here, as I mentioned, came from a building that
nice.
That's what happened to the building when they hit it with the fire hoses and it froze. So the whole building had this all over it. It was just covered with this stuff.
It's a great texture. Yeah.
Yeah. And apparently all they can do when something like that happens is the ice itself will basically pull the building apart as it thaws. So it just collapses if it gets covered completely in ice like that. So that's that approach there with all that. The way that I shot these people, I've got a couple of shots here to show you that. Get this one and this one. So again, after I did all the background plates, I'm going into the studio to shoot them. So this is the one where we have the portal. They're on their way to the portal there, the big eye-shaped portal, and it's pretty simple setup. This is a big octabox, and that's the only light source really there. Gives me the lighting that I'm looking for. This one I'm using gels. You can't see the light source here because I have a card to flag it off so I don't get flare directly into the lens from the light source, since I'm pretty much looking right into it. But just using color gels on the background. And whenever I isolate the figures, if it's appropriate, I try to also retain the shadow that's actually cast by the lighting, rather than just totally recreating the shadow in Photoshop. So I could show you how I approach that on one of these other composites, because it's a pretty useful technique, I would say. So,
and what do you prefer to use to select and extract from backgrounds? Do you tend to use the pen tool? Do you like to use the quick selection tool? What are you?
Well, it really depends on the situation.
Right.
If I have to be super precise, then I'll use the pen tool. If I really got to cut it out sharp, there's nothing better than that as far as I'm concerned. Of course, now you also have the curvature pen tool, which does make that a lot easier, because I teach this stuff too, and I find that that's probably the path tool is probably the most difficult tool for most people to get a handle on, because it's a little bit confusing at first.
Yeah.
There's these lines coming out all over the place. It's like, what does this thing do? So the curvature pen helps with that too. But mostly now, especially now, I might even start with select subject. A lot of times that works pretty well.
Right.
And then take that into selected mask and maybe refine it further. But I always try to create a layer mask, because I like to be able to continue to modify it if I need to. So in any case, whatever method I might use to actually select, I still want to make a layer mask out of it.
Correct.
For that reason. So, and also that the new select tool, what is it called now? It's
quick selection.
Just well, not quick select. It's the other one. It's a subject. You just drag it over and it selects. It kind of conforms to the selection.
Yeah, I think if you go to the quick selection and just right click, you'll see
there. But
right. It's the
object.
Object.
That's what they call it. Yeah. I forgot what they called it.
It's kind of hit or miss, though. I find that the quick selection seems to be more following the form and differentiating from the background, whereas that one's kind of hit or miss.
Yeah, it's still using some of that AI to try and make the selection, but nothing's 100%. So, so basically, you want to use whatever works in the end. Excuse me. Okay, so what I was going to show you was this. Okay. So this is you'll see here how I approach this when I'm trying to retain the actual real shadow cast in the scene. So here I have this shot, and I'll open up these series of layers here. So if I go here now and just show you what I shot and brought in. Okay, so I'd bring it in maybe like this. Initially for this. And then what I would do to retain this shadow, because I like this cast shadow, right? It seems to fit in the scene. I'll take my marquee tool, say, and I'll just make a rough selection like this on that section, on that layer. And then I will turn that into its own layer. Okay. So new layer via copy, right? So now I have this element right here. It's just a separate layer, right? Where the shadow is. So this is the foot shaft, right? Another thing I like to do right away is name my layers right away if possible, because if you've got to come back to this much later and your layers are all layer 1, layer 2, layer 3, you'll be like, what is this one? What does this one do?
Gets pretty crazy.
Yeah. Well, there was actually a good video I saw online about on Adobe Create. Are you familiar with that one?
Yes, I've heard. Yeah.
Yeah. They had someone who designs movie posters for a living talk about their workflow, and they have to, because when that's done, it goes through so many different people that they have to standardize their workflow in a very specific way. No plugins and Nothing fancy, but very super organized with the layers and the naming strategy and everything. So it is a good habit to be in with that. But anyway, I'll start with something like that as a separate layer. And I'm basically going to be kind of superimposing and masking it over the original one. So let me turn off some of this other stuff. You can see this. I'll hide all those layers. Just show this. So I have this layer here that's above. It's right on top. You can't really see anything right now because I haven't done anything yet to it. But I'll take this, and this layer will go into the multiply blending mode. That's going to darken the shadow, and it's going to start to drop out some of those lighter tones, right, when it mixes with this other shot. So what I would do then is add a layer mask to that, and I'd start to mask out around that, right? So with black paint, I'll just go to the brush tool, and it's kind of a big brush, but right, I'll start to paint that out all around, and try and use a soft edge brush and try and keep the original softness of the shadow that's there. And then of course the person gets they're on the separate layer, so I isolate them like this, right? And there you can see when I've got the combination of the two there, I can start to retain this shadow exactly where I want it. And so you can get little subtle things like because most shadows have two key elements in them. There's the contact shadow, and then there's the cast shadow. So when something actually touches a surface like her shoe, that has a very small, sharp edge shadow. And then the cast shadow is from the light source itself. That's typically softer, especially if it's a softer light source. So I'll have something like this, and then maybe here then I would put an adjustment layer on this to cast that shadow and put it into the scene. So let's get the other elements on here. There we go. So I just have a little bit of an adjustment at the end here for printing. Typically, I like to print from Photoshop rather than, say, from Lightroom, just because I have more controls at that point. So sometimes I'll have a little bit of a curve adjustment for the print output. But again, background element is made up of a lot of different things. These are textures that I had actually just downloaded online. They were black and white textures, and they're overlaying on this background here. So this is the original background, which is one of those cells from Eastern State Penitentiary. And it was a little bit light overall, so I wanted to have different textural elements here. And then I felt like it needed another section of the metal on this, so I added that on here with a shadow that I created in Photoshop. So, you can do the drop shadow just as an effect, right? But if you really want to refine the shadow, you could make a contact shadow, right, for the edge, and then you can have the cast shadow as separate elements. So basically, if you make the first one as a drop shadow, using the drop shadow settings here, right, however you want to do it. So if you were going to make the contact shadow, maybe you would want a very hard edge shadow with more density to it. that would be one shadow. But to get a second shadow, or to even be able to manipulate that shadow, you really need it on its own layer. And you can take an effect like drop shadow, and you can go to layer style and say create layer, and it will actually make a layer out of that particular layer style that you approach. Not all the layer styles work that way, but the drop shadow does. So I'll often do it like that. I'll make those two pieces. I'll make a sharp edged, denser contact shadow, and then a softer edged, lighter cast shadow if I'm creating a shadow from scratch. The other thing you can do with that too is, if you use that methodology, if you need to distort the shape of the shadow and everything, you can use the edit free transform and change the shape of it as much as you need to. So it's very flexible that way. Back there, I got one too many shadows showing now. So there you go. So that's the general approach. I'll just show you quickly the book here, and then we can answer any questions that we have here. So let me get this one piece open here.
Great work, though. Looks nice. Yeah.
Thank you. So as a part of the presentation, if it's going to do this,
It's just full screen mode, I guess.
it's wanting to go into there. Yeah. Okay. So this is the cover of the book. I'll just let it run here. I bought an off-the-shelf book from an art supply store, and then I sanded it and I had it etched. And so I made prints like this in here with some of the text underneath it. And there's also like a brief explanation at the beginning as well of the whole project. So
yeah, it looks good as a book, like all coming together. Yeah.
Yeah. And so it was kind of fun to make the book. I found a guy, a local guy, to actually can laser etch into the metal on the cover. So let me just take it out of full screen mode. It'll go there. Come on.
Command L.
Yeah,
Like, that might jump you out. Yeah.
There we go.
There we go. Good.
It's been my PDF viewer's been a little wonky lately. So I just want to go back here to show you this, because I took the book, sanded it with a disc sander. Then I had the type. All I needed to do was give him a digital file. I could laser etch the into the metal, and then you just rub ink into it.
Nice.
And you could get the typeface. And then I did myself on the side. I found this corrugated rubber and wanted to get that kind of a texture on the binding there. So did that and put these bolts with rivets and stuff on it just to add to that. So that was kind of fun to do also.
Yeah, fun project. Yeah.
Okay. So do we have some questions or?
Yeah, it's great. Great. Yeah. So let us know any questions. Let us know in the comments below the live video. I know that I'm not sure if you saw it before, but Stefan said, I love what you do, Jeff. Wonderful how you pull all this together for such a dramatic image or images. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it was, having worked as an advertising photographer for a long time, to do a longer term project was really interesting, because normally it's like you shoot something in 1 day or 2 days or maybe 3 days, and then you're on to something else completely different.
Right.
As you know, right.
Yeah, it's a busy life.
And everything needs to be done pretty much yesterday. So to be able to have the luxury of a little bit of time to do something like this was really great. Of course, then, about 7 or 8 years ago, I got into doing some, video production too. And so now I'm right back to doing long-term things. Video.
It's quite a great presentation. So maybe give him like a half a minute, see if he comes back. I think he was having storms where he is. So, yeah. Give a little respect to Jeff. Just wanted to let you know. Not sure if he'll be able to jump back in, but please do follow Jeff at jeffshafferphoto.com. You can also find him on Behance at behance.net, Shaffer Smith, and his YouTube channel, youtube.com/c/Jeff Shaffer Photo. So do check out his YouTube channel, his Behance, and his website. So thanks everyone for being here. I will, as I always do, post the video recording links in the various groups and on my Facebook business page. So thanks everyone for watching, and check out the recording after. And thanks again, Jeff. Sorry, things dropped out at the end, but it was a great presentation.